Hello everyone, if you're new here, welcome. I'm Lisa and I create colour pencil art to share the joy and calm that comes with working with this beautiful medium. Over on my Patreon, I make in-depth tutorials designed to encourage artists of all skill levels to get into colour pencils. Whether you're just starting out or looking to sharpen your techniques, there are tutorials for all skill levels. I've always found art to be so therapeutic, and with my love of nature and wildlife, it just makes sense to combine the two. Lately we've been branching out a bit on Patreon and exploring watercolour pencils as well. It's been really exciting, and we've completed this lovely watercolour fox and then a sweet little bunny, and most recently this beautiful deer. This deer is part of a full real-time tutorial series available now on Patreon. By signing up, you'll get access to the line art, material list, high quality reference photos, and of course the full step-by-step real-time tutorials of all three of these watercolour pieces and more to come. So let's dive into the deer and take a look at how we've brought this beautiful woodland creature to life. So because the main focus of this piece is going to be this big black eye, we're going to put that in first. So make sure to have a really sharp point on your watercolor pencil, wanting just to go in and map in where you can see the darkest points. Starting to add some of the cold grey too and light ultramarine, adding some of the burnt ochre, and then blending back over with the same colors and then getting darker with the black. Starting to go in with a bit of an outline around the eye just to get the shape and the tones that we need. And then next it's time to wet this down with the water. So I'm using a really small brush here, and because this is a really small section of the deer, what we're going to do is wet the brush it off on the side of the glass, and then you can either rub it on your hand or rub it on another bit of paper just to fully dry it off, and then go in with the really damp brush. So you don't want to go on with dripping sort of brush or too wet. You want it to be relatively dry, because the wetter it is, the more it's going to push the color around the page, and because this is a really small area, we don't want to push the color around. We just want to activate it and make it brighter and darker for this eye section. So you can see how I'm just using the very tip of the brush, going in very slowly and gently just to blend this down and make it nice and saturated. And then while we wait for that to dry, we can go into the next section and begin to add that in. After adding in the second eye, it's time to add in all of the fur on the head. So making sure to go in the direction of the fur, and this is just a basic base layer, so we don't need to go in with a lot of detail. We're just putting in the general colors that you can see and then wetting that down, making sure to keep the lighter sections nice and light. And we can always get darker later, but it's hard to get lighter, so make sure to keep the lighter sections as bright as you can. Then once that's dry, this is when we can go over with our darker layers and start to put in all of those little details you can see in the fur, making sure to have a really nice sharp pencil at this point so that you can get in all of those little fur lines. Remember to go in the direction of the fur and also mimic the length of the fur that you can see in the photo. So if it's really short fur, you want to go in with really little strokes, and if it's longer towards the end of the head, you can sort of flick them off in the direction a little bit longer so that they get in that good fur detail. And then just going through and completing the rest of the head and the ears in the same process. So going through, completing the base layer, moving on to another section, and once that base layer is dry, we can go back in and finalize it all. Remember that this is a full real-time tutorial on Patreon, so if you're still confused or want more instructions, you can get everything you need to complete this one all by yourself. So the hardest bit of this whole thing was probably the back and the spots on the back, just because we're using the negative space method, and this means that we're just going around those white spots with our colour pencils to keep them nice and white. Using colour pencils and watercolour pencils, it's really hard to get white, really bright white highlights over colour. So it's best to do the negative space method where you just don't go into that white area, go around it with your colour pencils. And then again, when you're wetting it down, make sure to have a really dry brush, go in with the very tip of the brush, and you just need to go really intricately around each of the spots one by one. And because we're adding in a lot of colours, so we're doing some of the cold grey 2, light Naples ochre, the burnt ochre, some of the cadmium orange, burnt sienna, walnut brown, and then a little bit of the black. We're going around these spots with all of those colours, so it just does take a very long time to complete this sort of texture. But that's one of the great things about colour pencils, is you just take your time. It's very therapeutic just to put on some music, really get into the moment and work on your piece of art. Once that was dry, we can go over with the darker colours and start to darken it up. I had a lot of issues with this bit of paper and the pencils, I just wasn't getting as smooth as what I wanted, so I did go over with the water again and wet it all down. But you just need to see what works with the resources that you're using. I was explaining on Patreon that if your paper is working fine and it's all great, then just continue working on, but I had to spend a little bit more time of mine and blend it down with my pencils, also blending it down with the brush, which is good for everyone to see because it doesn't always go as smoothly, and the outcome may look good, but it doesn't mean it was easy to do or it didn't have its struggles as you go along. Moving on to the legs, we did the same thing again, so doing a nice base layer, wetting it all down with the water, and then moving on to the next one. So remember to pay really close attention to your reference photo. So as you get to under the belly, the back leg and everything, you need to sort of see where you can see the darker sections and the lighter sections. So the darkness and lights and the highlights is what's going to make it look realistic and give it that sort of 3D effect. If you're not adding in those highlights and the shadows, it's going to look flat. And for this sort of thing, we're trying to make it look as realistic as possible, even though it is sort of a cartoon character. Then once all of the legs are in, we can go back over once it's dry and add in all of those little details and start to get darker with our darker pencils. Then once everything is in and you're pretty happy with it, I usually step back and have a look from afar and look at the reference photo and see where I need to tweak anything, add some more details, go lighter, or try and add in any of the darker tones. For this piece, I explained to my Patreons that I wasn't going to go as dark as the reference photo. So in the reference photo, the animal is standing in a shadow and it's quite dark, but I wanted to make this nice and light because I'm not going to be adding a background or anything around it. So I'm just wanting it to be the main sort of feature and have it nice and bright on the page. So this is where you need to spend your time and just get to a point that you're really happy with it. It doesn't need to be exactly what the reference photo looks like. It's your own art. It needs to be unique and individual. Just make sure that you're happy with it, but definitely stepping back and having a look from afar really helps get perspective on the piece. I really hope that you like this video, guys. Remember to like and subscribe. I'll leave a link in the description to my Patreon and you can see all of the tutorials on my website. Remember to let me know in the comments what you think of this one, and I'll see you in the next video. Thanks, guys.